Sterling Heights Public Library. My name is Brent, and today we're going to talk about steak. Okay, today I have a couple of T-bone steaks here. Why T-bones? Well, there's a lot to talk about, and they're pretty easily recognizable. Why do they call them T-bones? Well, because the bone is shaped kind of like a T. So this here is from a piece of the animal called the short loin. This is up along the backbone. This is actually cross-cut of the spinal column. You can see how that would fit together. The spinal cord would run up through this middle here. And this here is actually the top of the animal, and this is inside the body cavity. So this here would be, without a bone in it, this would be the piece that usually would be the New York strip. Okay. And this here is a little piece of the tenderloin, which runs up inside the animal. So you will also find that the short loin is going to produce your Porterhouse. What's the difference between a Porterhouse and a T-bone? Basically the size of the tenderloin piece. In a Porterhouse, you're typically going to see your tenderloin is going to be at least 2 inches wide. And that's typically going to be even a little bit more expensive than your T-bone. So this is a pricey piece of the animal. It is generally considered to be one of the top cuts off of a cow, largely because it does comprise 2 of your major steak portions on a cow. One of the other ones that tends to be really choice is going to be your ribeye, and that's a little further up the animal. So this is found forward of the hips and behind where the ribs come in. So a couple of things to look for when you're looking at steak. See these little bits of white streak that run through the muscle in here? This is called marbling, okay? Now the higher the level of marbling, the higher the grade of meat. Now, this intramuscular fat is what you're looking for. The stuff on the outside here, well, this is just trim. This tail end down here, a little bit of that's fine, but keep in mind that when you're buying steak, especially if you're buying steak with a bone in it, your price per pound is going to include the bone and any fat. So something that's nicely trimmed, you're going to be getting a better deal because you're going to be getting more meat and less trim and less bone. So you're not going to very often see, let's talk about the grades of meat. So we talked about this intramuscular fat here, this marbling being how they grade meat. So you've heard of prime. Prime is a very, very high level of marbling. It's not something you're going to see in most grocery stores. It's a very small percentage of the total supply, usually goes into high-end restaurants and hotels. Choice is what you're going to see most frequently. How do you tell whether it's choice or not? Well, you don't necessarily have to know the marbling yourself because it should be on the label. You're also going to sometimes find one called select. Select is one step down from choice. It has a bit less marbling. Sometimes when you find a really good price in the store, sometimes it's on select. There's nothing wrong with select. It's still very, very decent stuff, but it doesn't have as high a level of marbling in it. Now, one of the places that your marbling comes into play is when you're talking about the temperature that you're cooking the steak to. So if you want something that is more medium well or well done, with no pink or just a little teeny bit of pink in it, that's where your marbling really comes into play, because as this steak cooks, some of that fat starts to melt a little bit, and that keeps a more well done steak juicier. Now, your fillet side over here has almost no marbling in it at all. This can get very, very dry if you overcook it too much. So when you're talking about like a tenderloin or filet mignon, that tends to work better if you're doing it anywhere from rare to about medium, maybe even medium well. But if you overcook that piece of meat, it gets dry. If you're going to be doing something more on the well done side, look for marbling, because that is going to keep your steak much moister and much juicier. So there's not really any real trimming to do on these. These were nicely trimmed from the store. Do keep an eye out certain times of the year because you're going to find your best sale prices on this usually around the big summer grilling holidays. Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day, you'll often see better prices on this. Beef prices are still pretty high right now. Supply is still a little bit tight, but if you pay attention, you can sometimes find a pretty good price on this. It's never going to be cheap. So let's take a moment, and I'm going to grill these later on today. So I'm going to take a few moments here and season these beforehand. So we're going to give it a nice salting, a couple of grinds of pepper, and a little bit of oil, and then flip them over. And you're going to find that if you pre-season your meat and let it sit for at least a couple hours, you can do this the day before, you are going to get much better flavor out of this than if you just season it just before you put it on the grill. You get a chance for that salt to kind of penetrate in there and work in. It's going to help retain moisture, and you're also going to get a much more pronounced beefy flavor out of this if you let that work. So I'm just going to turn these over once or twice. That just kind of helps move the oil around. And then I'm going to put a little bit of plastic wrap over the top of it, stick it in the fridge, and I'll grill these off probably about 6-7 hours from now. We're back. We got a nice hot fire going here, and I got enough surface area here I need to work with, so we're working with almost a full grill. Put the grill on a few minutes ago to heat up the grates. That's nice and hot right now, so we're going to go ahead and pop these right on here. And we're going to leave these in place for at least 2 minutes before we turn them. That's how you get the crisscross marks on them. When you got just straight lines, you give them almost a 90-degree turn in order to get that second mark on there. Now, depending on how you like your steak, that does make a little bit of a difference when you're picking out your meat too. If you like things that are more on the pink or the red side, try to get a thicker cut. If you're at a grocery store, you're probably going to be working with whatever they've got. But if you're dealing with a butcher shop or a meat market, you might even be able to get a custom cut on that. But the thicker it is, the easier it is to get a nice medium rare or rare. The thinner pieces cook really fast, so by the time you got your marks on them, sometimes they're already past where you want them to be. So we're going to let these go for a minute. I'm going to go back in and wash the platter off real quick. I am going to set the lid on here briefly with the vents open, just so it doesn't flare while I'm in the house. And then about maybe 2.5 minutes on that first side. So it's about time to flip these things over. You can see we got our first set of marks on there. It goes just in this direction. You can see this one here has got a little bit less marking on it, so I got a little bit of a cooler spot on this piece of the grill. So I'm going to rotate these things around a little bit, and I'll move one of these other ones into this area shortly, but not just yet. So it's been another couple minutes, and we're about ready to flip back over. One of the reasons we're going back and forth on these rather than just doing one side at a time, it's going to cook a little bit more evenly this way. So I'm going to move this one back and this one forward. So we're going to take advantage of that difference in temperature on the grill there. This one here is in just a pretty good spot. I'll pop that one over one more time. We're going to start establishing those crisscross marks. Now, as far as doneness goes, most of your pros are going to be able to do this by feel, and they'll be able to just poke it with a pair of tongs, and they'll know, you know, how done something is. That takes a lot of practice. You can use a meat thermometer on a thicker steak. It's a little bit challenging with a thinner one. Actual temperatures, your rare is going to be about 120 degrees. Medium rare is about 130. Mediums about 135, 140. You get up to about 150 or so, you're getting into medium well, and above 160 is well done. So that's going to be your red, your reddish pink, your a little pink, and your no pink at all. And then we got a little bit of flare in here. That's got to do with the fat starting to melt in there over a really hot fire. So we're just going to tame that down with this. So if you want to get a feel for rare, check the feel of that steak when it's still raw. And as it comes along, keep giving it a little poke. And as it starts to really start to firm up a little bit, that's when it's really starting to cook. So the backside of these is starting to look pretty nice. Just checked them a moment ago. Give those a good turn here. You can see we're starting to develop a nice sear on those. This one here's got some nice marks. Those are a little bit easier to establish if you're working with a gas grill or something that's got a little bit heavier grate on it. With a charcoal grill, this type of a grate here, it's a little hard to get enough thermal mass to really sear those marks in, but you can do it. So these here are very close to where I want them, so I'm going to give them just another moment here. Pull them off. I like them still on the pink side, so we're not going to take them all the way to well done. Okay, these are about where I want them. Whew. Man. So we're going to close up the grill. Close up all the vents. That'll smother the fire. Bring these inside. We're going to let them rest for several minutes before we do anything with them, just to allow the temperature to kind of even out and for those juices to kind of settle a little bit. If you cut one of these things when it's straight off the grill, it's going to bleed all over the place. Most of your juice is going to wind up on the plate. So we're going to let these rest for a few minutes, and then we'll show you what they look like. So we got one of these nice steaks here. I got some nice pea pods here on the side. I'm going to go ahead and just cut into this thing and see how we did. Now, when you're dealing with something with a bone in it, it's always going to be redder near the bone, and typically it's going to take a little bit longer to cook. But these are not real thick steaks, so they went pretty quick. If you wanted to take these more to a... There we go. So we got a nice, about a medium in here. It's nice and pink in here still. It's not all dried out. So, Steak 101. Give it a shot.